Oh! What's up, you gooberinos of the internet? Mark with Cartervox Academy here, and today we're checking out something kind of funky. Eskimo Callboy. Another version of Hypa Hypa. Actually, as of the recording, there's another version of Hypa Hypa out there. It seems like they're collaborating with a bunch of bands. This one that we're checking out today is a collaboration with a band called We Butter the Bread with Butter, who's kind of in the same vein. They're kind of plucky and fun, but also really good at the same time, so I'm excited to see how that goes. We've gone over the original version of Hypa Hypa before. You can check it out in the description of this video. And I had a lot of fun with that song. So I anticipate I'm going to have a lot of fun with this one as well. In fact, a couple people have told me that they think I'm going to like this version better. I'll be the judge of that. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is Mark, and I am a vocal coach specializing in metal vocals, harsh metal vocals predominantly. And I'm also a vocalist in 3 bands, Kardashev, Never Breath, and Viremia. So if you enjoy the content, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, let me know in the comments below. And we do have a Patreon. If you, at the end of this video, you're like, dang, that was fun, I want to help support this channel. You can, but you don't have to. So without further ado, let's get goofy and let's check out whatever this song is going to be, because that's how this works. So mote it be. Here we go. Oh, that's cool. Oh. Okay, cool. So since I've heard the original version, I've got a kind of decent idea of where to pause and where to talk. So this is like a trend now. I feel like in a lot of my videos, I'm like, we're only 50 seconds in, or we're less than a minute in, and there's already so much to talk about, but like people are bringing the heat. So the first thing I want to talk about, I'm actually not sure if it's happening, but it sounds like it. So at the very beginning, when he's like doing those low, and by the way, I'm coming off some laryngitis, so I'm going to be taking the metal vocals a little light today. I'm filming 3 videos today, so it's going to be a good time. But it sounds like he's using what we could call a lateral approximant to articulate the d sound, right? So in the lyrics, if I remember correctly, this is just dump 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 dump, but he's doing it with metal lows, right? Now, sometimes when we're holding a low, depending on how we're doing it, we're getting the low with a curl of the tongue and the mouth being kind of like puckered and forward. You can hear that cavernous sound, right? That cavernous sound in many ways and in part is being created by the curl of the tongue. So it can be difficult to articulate duh and tuh and even like th, s, sh, any of those sort of lingual frontal sounds. While maintaining that low cavernous tone. So one thing you can do if you want to have a little hack, so to speak, is you can use what's called a lateral approximant, and that's basically when your tongue utilizes the sides against the teeth while keeping the tip of the tongue connected to the alveolar ridge, which is that little bumpy spot like up and behind your teeth, right? So if I was to say, if I wanted to do it this way, and I actually do this a lot in my own music, if I was to do right, I'm actually saying right. You can actually use that for a lot, like g, k, any sort of like even voiced, any sort of like plosive sound that would normally use the tip of your tongue or even the back of your tongue. You can do that little trick. Also, last thing I want to mention before we keep going, because I'm sure there's a lot to talk about. Loving the highs here. Loving the highs. There's one section, I want to actually go back and find it, where he scooped from like a low placed high vocal to a high placed high vocal. And the thing I loved about it, number one, was that it sounded sick as heck. But number two, we could tell that he was using primarily his mouth to do so, right? A lot of times people think if they're going to go from low to high, they have to start by pushing their larynx like down to their freaking collarbone and shove it up, like kind of like a Tim the Toolman Taylor type of noise. But what we want to actually do when we have our high tone, we're using forward placement and then just opening up. So the sound underneath it the whole time is just, but we're going, so it's a lot more easy to manage, and it keeps our larynx nice and neutral. It's okay if your larynx moves sometimes, right? I'm not one of these people who's like, your larynx can't move at all, but we don't want to use it as the steering wheel most of the time. Let's see if I can find that. And then we're just going to kind of keep going. I think it was after the megaphone, dude. Yeah.
Das ist ganz klar. Komm und tanz mit mir heute Nacht. Hypa, Hypa, ich mag dich, das ist ganz klar. Kuscheln ist der neue Tag erwacht.
We also hear some really cool stuff that I'm kind of obsessed with these high vocals. We'll talk about the other things as well. Like right after I started the song back up, we had like these really deep guttural lows, and you might have heard that sort of cavernous sound. A lot of that is created again with the front of the mouth. Now we can bring our larynx down a little bit. Totally. Like we can do that. It's safe. We just don't want to crank on it, right? So if I take my normal voice, right? It's a little different than the way he was generating the distortion. But essentially we can create that cavernous sound. So if you are out there trying to make your lows lower and you're like, where should I put my neck? What am I supposed to be doing with my neck? Ignore the neck for a bit. Focus on the face. This sounds deep, but if I pull back, it's just my speaking voice, right? Second thing is on these high vocals, one thing it sounds like he's doing, which is really cool, is intentionally adding a little bit of breathiness to it, right? So we get like sort of what I think of as like this cat's hiss. So if I do a high vocal that has, you know, as little breathiness as I can put on it without it sounding too constricted, it has that sound, right? Which is nice and crisp and very versatile. You can use that for a lot of things. Now, if I add an intentional amount of to it, right? It has kind of this sort of TV static sound. Now, when you're doing highs like this, you might get like a lot of foamy saliva up on the soft palate. This is basically, I actually asked my ENT because I was like, hey, give me the deets, bro. As long as this is coming from up top, it's basically because your tonsils are shaking around. This is what he told me anyway. Your tonsils are shaking around and that's stimulating your salivary glands. Now, if you're screaming and you get mucus and phlegm coming up from the vocal folds, that can mean that your vocal folds are irritated and they're basically trying to lubricate themselves and saying like, yo, can you please stop smacking on us, right? So if it's up here, you know, it kind of makes you want to do that a little bit. Nothing to worry about. If it's down here, anytime you're getting a feeling or reaction behind the larynx, it's time to you know, look into our technique. But yeah, listen to that with his highs. Also, I just love the goofy tone. Like I'm loving like the wigs and the mustaches and the weird like goofy singing. It's so good. Let's go back a little bit and keep listening. Yeah. can't with like what. I kept wanting to be like, ooh, this is a good spot. I want to talk about something. And then they just kept getting slower and deeper and slower and deeper. And it's like, yo, chill out for a second. Okay, so first of all, that chorus was like strangely beautiful, right? Like, I'm really enjoying this whole song, but like I wasn't expecting something that made me go like, oh, like, yes, right in the feels. That chorus was really pretty. And you know, the contrast between like these really like hissy highs that he's doing and those like beautiful soaring like chord movements in the background, that was really cool. I wouldn't have thought that his high vocals would work with that type of melody, with that type of sound, I should say, but it really did. So that's really cool. Also, another vocal style he's doing, I'm going to do a really light low version of it to protect the old vocal folds. Because between this and full day lessons tomorrow, I gotta be kind to myself, right? But he's doing like this more true chord phonated belty sound. Now you can approach this from a fry or a false chord perspective. You really can. But a lot of it is going to come from understanding how to differentiate the placement of your distortion and the placement of your true chord phonation. You can, like when we learn false chord vocals, and when we learn fry vocals, we learn a very specific way to use the vocal folds in those screams, right? So if it's a false chord, you don't use them at all. Hey, yeah. You can't hear Mark, right? Hey, oh, there's no Mark here. And then over time, we can turn that into, like we can turn that into that sound. With the fry, where we are using the vocal folds, we are creating distortion on the vocal folds. So I'm going to hold off on that. Actually, I probably should. But we are creating distortion on the vocal folds, but we often want to start also so where we don't hear our voice. I do a little quiet one. So the here's me. Here's more of a that's more of like a basal fry tone. It doesn't sound like Mark, right? However, as we progress and as we learn to control distortion by way of support and resonance control, resonance shifting, we can include our true chord sounds plenty, and we're getting that in kind of like these lower gritty belts. Also, the low screams were disgusting. We're gonna go. It's my channel, and I do what I want, and we're gonna go listen to that just disgusting, dirty outro again. Goodness gracious, that was gross, and I loved it. I think let's just go right here. I don't know, 225. I like that. Yeah, right there. Oh. Okay, cool. Oh, we got a little time left. All right, that's fine. So, a couple cool things that I really liked. First of all, yeah, just kind of going back to the high vocals with the melody. Like, it's crazy how it works, because if he told me it wouldn't. Like, I would say I disagree, right? The high vocal that he's doing, it's a really pretty quintessential deathcore sound, right? It's not the only type of deathcore high that's out there, right? And you also hear it a lot in certain types of black metal. This right? If I slow down the airflow, if I take this right there, right, we get kind of that low rumbly sound, and it's funny because I would be like, that's kind of got a black metal vibe. I don't know how it's going to sound against like, you know, like beautiful chords. And he even does like this little as they're transitioning to like the heavy outro, which I think is really funny because I'm like, it's almost like he's saying to me like, yeah, it's kind of black metal. Let me do what I want. I'm my own vocalist. And I'm like, you're right. Secondly, we're going to listen to this again, but he did a lot of really cool lows. And sometimes I think in the metal vocal world, we use the term technique maybe a little bit more broadly than we should, right? Now, some things are totally different techniques. False chord and fry, those are different techniques, right? 100% different techniques. But sometimes I think that when somebody just makes a slightly different position with their mouth, maybe that's not a different technique. It's just a different vocal position, right? But because our vocal style is so textured, you know, we're all out here, all us metal vocalists, we're doing these vocals that are so heavily textured. This black screen is boring. Here we go. That's a good image. Our vocal style is so heavily textured that little tiny adjustments to the mouth make a big difference. Now, there was one that sounded like he was doing more of a slammy, like epiglottal distortion. That might have been true. But he had like a... like with those, the same thing is happening underneath. I'm just moving my tongue around. In the back, in the front, with an E vowel. That's about it, right? But my point isn't to say like he wasn't doing anything worth talking about. My point was saying that he's doing a really good job moving the mouth shape around and creating all these different textures for us to hang around with and enjoy. Let's check it out. And then we're just going to finish the song out. Right here. Yeah. That was wild. What, like, I feel like every time that's the original. I feel like every time I check out a song by Eskimo Callboy, by the end of it, I'm just like, what even just happened? What even is life, right? But let's kind of wrap it up here. So, great song. I think y'all were right. I do like that version better. I like both versions, but I do like this version a little bit better. And I think it's the high vocals that sold it for me, because I love good high vocals. And I love the way that he was using his mouth to sort of modulate the sound. The mouth is actually, the lips are really cool, right? So we have this ring muscle around our lips. It's called the orbicularis oris, right? Orbicular, or orbiting. It's sort of orbiting the oris, the mouth, right? And this muscle, truth be told, because it is a ringed muscle, it is a sphincter. So your mouth is a sphincter. You're welcome. And it works in 4 quadrants, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And maybe a 5th. I'm not sure about this one. Right? So we have all these ways that we can move this muscle around and augment the sound, right? If I take the same sound, right? It's not going to like change it insanely, but if you pair that with tongue placement and airflow management, like, you know, or moving back and forth, moving your resonance back and forth a little bit, front, back, right? Which I'm doing mostly with my tongue, right? That's the way I'm controlling it. You can make all sorts of cool sounds. So a lot of that in this video was a lot of fun. Great job, Eskimo Callboy. Great job. We buttered the bread with butter. Appreciate y'all for making this song. Again, if you enjoyed it, if you learned something, let us know in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell. Really does help with the algorithm. We're getting close to that 100K subs, and I'm very excited about that. What else? Oh, Patreon. If you want to check it out, feel free to. You get to vote on a video every month. And in fact, my patrons, the video they voted on this month is an absolute troll. They're trolling me. Apparently I am a certified freak. That's your clue into which song we're going to be doing. But hey, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you taking some time out of your day. As I always say, many thanks, much love. I'm out.